Welcome back to Step by Step. If you're new here, we come here every week at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Saturdays and go over a furniture redo step by step. Here's this week's victim. Now, when I brought it up, it looked nice. At least when it was in my basement, I thought it was nice. And then the more I looked at it, I started to see it wasn't as nice as I thought it was. So upon inspection, I decided I was going to remove the doors, those shutters, shuttered doors or louvered doors. There was a lot of condition issues with them. There was contact paper in the bottom. That's no big deal. And I removed that little skirt on the bottom because it was really loose. So there was some dried glue and got that removed. So here's pretty much what we're left with. Got the rest of that contact paper out. Filled up all the little holes that were remaining. And any little chips that were left using Dixie Belle's mud. And of course we cleaned it thoroughly with Dixie Belle's White Lightning. I removed the hardware before we got started. This piece seems to have all the action in the drawer. So the rest of it's pretty plain and simple. And the drawer got all the bells and whistles because Dixie Belle has a line of bells and whistles. And they include transfers and decoupage paper, and we're actually working with a decoupage paper today. Because I'm using a decoupage paper on these drawer fronts, I want to put a light color underneath so that it's kind of transparent, so that when it shows through that it's not going to be dark or show any wood grain. So I'm using Dixie Belle's Fluff to just put a coat of paint, and I'm not being particular because I'm going to be painting over those outside frame. I am using Dixie Belle's Blue Sketched Rose decoupage paper, and here I'm doing just kind of a dry fit. I'm deciding where I want the paper, and I'm going to trim off all of the excess edges on there because I want those to be able to meet. They're really great the way these papers are lined up because they are designed so that they will butt up against each other. You can match it like you can match wallpaper. So I just continue to trim and to dry fit, and then I just kind of use my fingernails to go around the edges to crease it so that I know where to cut the sizes of the drawer fronts. So once I have it creased, then I take the scissors and I cut that. That's my guideline for where to cut. You can see as I'm holding the paper up against there, the areas that are painted behind are definitely giving it a brighter backdrop. You can see a little bit of transparency when you look on the edge of the drawer. So I continue to line it up, and like I said, you can line it up the seam just like wallpaper, and I continue to score it so I know where to cut. This step seems like a lot of work, but it's really important to get it lined up, especially on this piece. Since the drawer is kind of the focal point, we just want to make sure that it's seamless and that it's pleasing to the eye. So here's where the fun begins. I'm taking Dixie Belle's clear flat top coat sealer, and I'm just using a brush, and I am painting where the decoupage paper is going to go. So we're using this flat clear coat as a decoupage medium. So we're just putting a generous coat on the bottom, or on the surface of the drawer. I'm being pretty brave using my desk, or my drawer front as a desk. So I'm just lining it up, and you can kind of pick it up. It's not like an immediate contact thing. So you just want to take your time and get it placed where you want it. And this pattern is not directional, but I did kind of pick the way I wanted it, and I made sure that it was facing the way I wanted it to. Even though I have the opening of the drawer facing me, the actual pattern goes in the direction that I want. So once you get it placed, you want to just paint over the top of the decoupage paper with the clear flat sealer. You can use a gloss, you can use a satin, it's totally up to you. I just like using the flat in this instance. So now we're going to paint the other side with the sealer. So now you can see why you want to paint white underneath, or a light color to give it that background. You could change the look of it by changing the color underneath. But for the crisp image, you want to paint it a white. So we're going to line it up. And this just shows you, if you don't have it quite right, you can pick it up and do it again, because I thought I had it right, and then move the whole thing. It's all good. I sure hope you enjoy watching our weekly step-by-step videos. We have a live video that we do on Tuesday nights called Tuesday Talk, and we do a little bit smaller craft items or pieces of projects there. And then on Thursday nights at 8 p.m. we have more about decor, and it's a little bit more design based, not so much furniture painting, but we talk about furniture a lot. Okay, so now that I have done that, I kept the piece of furniture on its back because I thought that was going to be the easiest way to paint. And I'm using Dixie Belle's Nautical, that's the color, in the silk line. Silk is a little bit different than chalk paint, so the back of the drawer was regular chalk mineral paint, but this is our silk. And silk is, just as it says, it leaves a silkier finish. There's no finishing required on top of it because it has a built-in base and top coat. So it's really an all-in-one paint. Very easy to use. You want to use a synthetic brush, and you don't want to add any extra water to it. Look at that color. It's kind of like a cobalt color to me. Now I'm using a small brush. I'm using a Dixie Belle flat, small brush, and I'm just very carefully guiding the edge of the brush along the edge of the place where I did the decoupage. Does anybody else hold their breath when they do stuff like this? I do. Probably not a good idea. I don't hold my breath for long. Lots of times when people watch me paint, they say I have a steady hand. That's just something that you just kind of develop. When you're in a hurry, you kind of do that rather than tape things off. So you learn what to do slow and what to do quickly. But I just continue to go around the frame and just cut in. So even as I watch it, I kind of hold my breath a little bit. So here's how the piece looks before the rest of it is finished. It's wet, as you can see. So now I'm going to address the hardware. I'm using Dixie Belle's Gemstone Mousse in Diamond. Diamond is like a silver color. So I didn't really care for the way the hardware looked. I was even looking to change it, but as I looked through my collection, I didn't really find a piece that was the same width between the screws. So I thought, I'm just going to give this one a makeover. So again, I'm using the Gemstone Mousse, which is an awesome paint for hardware and details. It's a little bit thicker than regular paint. And it's still water-based, but it has the consistency of mousse. So kind of like a pudding, if you will. The different colors have different consistencies. So I find this one to be a little bit more, a little thinner. So it's kind of like a thin pudding. But I'm just coating the entire piece. And I only used one coat on this, so it covered really, really super well. So now we're using that fluff again on the sides of the drawers. Again, the drawers are the star of the show with this piece. So we're going to make the sides of the drawers a little bit impressive. This is just one coat, certainly easy to do. There's one thing I want to address on this piece that I haven't, but it had some bleed through. Most of the piece that I used the nautical on is not a concern because it's a dark color. But normally using a white like this, I'm going to show you a close-up a little bit later, but it has bleed through, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. So now I'm using a heat gun on here to dry the sides because I was in a hurry. I don't normally recommend you do that. You can cause bubbles. Now here's that bleed through. And next we're going to use, so we're not worrying about the bleed through a whole lot because we're going to use another product from the Bells and Whistles line. We're going to use the silkscreen stencil in roses. It's so easy to use these, and they're so beautiful, and here I'm just trying to decide on the placement. I like to cut them apart. I think that's the easiest way to use them. Other people might like to just leave it on there and tape it off. And I'm trying to decide which way I want to position it. So I'm just putting it on there, and I'm having difficulty peeling it right now, but it's pretty easy to come off. And then it is like a sticker. So you put it in place, and it's like a real silk screen. There's a screen in the opening. It's not just an open spot. So you want to make sure it's down. You can either use a little squeegee that comes with it, or I'm going to use a brush, and that's my preference, but I'm going to use that nautical paint that we use to paint the rest of the piece. This is just going to give the drawers a little added something when you open them up. So I just kind of go back and forth over the silk screen just to make sure that I'm getting the paint in the screen so that we get a good image. Super easy to do, and then you just peel it up. And there we have our little rose transfer or stencil. So now I am taking the Best Dang Wax in brown, and I am just putting a little age on our silver. So I'm just putting it on and then wiping it back. It's just going to give it a little bit more of a vintage look. I'm going around the edges and around the center. Or I should say around where the knob pull meets. It's just areas that normally would age a little bit. I think it's funny that we take the aged look away, paint it fresh, and then give it a new aged look. Definitely fresher. We had clean dirt back in, right? So I use that wax also around the edges of the areas that I put the decoupage in. That's also helping with the bleed through here. I noticed there was a little bit of bleed through on the largest portion of the drawer as well. Sometimes when you seal a piece, you may not see it until you seal it, and that's when it comes through. But not to worry, because we're just using some wax and we're giving it a little age around the outside of those edges. And we are putting more fluff on the other side. And then we're going to put our attention to the inside of the drawer. And I wish you could smell this. We're using Big Mama's Butter in Suzanne's Garden. We're just conditioning the inside of the drawer and making it smell good. So we really are carrying that rose theme throughout the whole piece. This also comes in Orange Grove. But when I'm painting with roses, nothing else is going to do besides Suzanne's Garden. And I'm pretty sure the Suzanne is Suzanne Fulford, who is the owner of Dixie Belle Paints. Woman-owned company in Florida. So everything's made in the United States. So now I'm just adding that hardware back on. I'm using a little screw to poke the holes through the decoupage paper, a sharp screw, and then of course I add the machine screws in the back and screw the hardware back on. Look at that little pop of that stencil on the side. Doesn't it just complement the fronts of the drawers so well? I really think it looks nice. I forgot a little wax around my knobs, so added that back in. My pants kind of match this piece. I also have a white t-shirt on, but I was smart enough to wear an apron today. Not all days I'm that smart. So I'm taking the wax also around the edges of the drawer. So are you ready for this piece? Outside for staging. I always love my brick wall. And we're just showing off that piece. Have it all set up for you, and here's the details. People have told me I don't show the finished piece off enough, so hopefully you're getting a good look at the finished piece and enjoying it. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it. That would be awesome. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Visit us at LaVintageDecor.company, on Instagram at LaVintageDecor, and on Facebook, we're LaVintageDecor Altoona.